my information. I'm happy to talk more about this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
John Donna, 261 South Street. Thank you, President Loretti, Vice President McGrath, Council, Mr. Town Manager. President Loretti, I just want to recognize you for putting together a candidate night last month with some other residents in Bridgewater. I know you put a lot of time into that. And I attended myself, and it was at a local establishment in Bridgewater, and the showing was excellent. There were candidates at the state level, at the federal level, and otherwise. And it was well attended too, not just by Bridgewater residents, but residents of other towns. So it was good to see the enthusiasm because we do have an election coming up in November, an important election. And in fact, I'll speak for myself here. There were 3 candidates running for governor against the current governor, Governor Healy, and there were some refreshing ideas that I heard that night. Repeal MBTA on day one would be one of them. Declaring Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state. That and a lot of other great ideas I've heard from these candidates. You know, I was watching a replay of the State of the Commonwealth address from Governor Healy, and after her general comments, the first thing she went into was housing. Build more, build faster. Use state land to build housing. She quoted a study that says the Commonwealth needs 225,000 new houses by 2035 to keep pace. And so, you know, it's just not the MBTA, it's this governor and the current legislature, which seem to applaud these comments, at least the ones that were on camera. I mean, is this such a great idea for Massachusetts to just build all these houses as more and as fast as possible, reducing EPA approval times? And if Governor Healy gets elected again, the only places we're going to have to go are to each other's houses and to businesses. There's not going to be another land to go to. Maybe with the exception of Hanson Farm, we can definitely go there. But thank you again, Councilor Loretti and President Loretti and the other candidates, because we do need to look at some alternatives for governor and other offices this coming fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up and speak? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will move on to appointments. We do have one this evening for the planning board. This is for Mr. Daniel Greenberg. I'll ask our town manager to introduce this candidate.
You have Dan's information in your packet, but Dan is on the zoning board of appeals, and if he were to be appointed to the planning board, he would resign his position from ZBA. I imagine that's one of the questions that might be asked. But his information is in the packet. He did go before the CAC, and they unanimously approved him as well.
Great, thank you for that. Do I have a motion for approval and a second for discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any discussions on this appointment, councilors?
I just have a question, which is why does the fellow want to move from the ZBA to the planning board? If the candidate could answer the question.
I don't believe Mr. Greenberg's here tonight, but he did sort of in his reasoning that's in the package, he just mentioned his 20 years of experience. Initially, when he did apply for the zoning board of appeals, he did initially apply for the planning board. I think he's always been interested in serving on the planning board. So I'll let his word speak for himself.
In the comments from the CAC, it mentions that he feels he'll be able to have a bigger impact on the planning board, and he would resign from the ZBA.
I think we have a very highly qualified candidate here, and I think he's given past service on the ZBA, which to me is kind of training ground for the planning board.
I would agree. Any other comments?
I just wondered, do we happen to have a vacancy in the planning board right now, or would this be like someone who would then eventually come onto the planning board?
There is a vacancy on the planning board. It's not an alternate.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will now move on to hearings. First up, we have petition P 2026-15, possible revocation of the Class 2 used auto dealer's license for Reliable Enterprises LLC, 567 Main Street. This is advertised in the January 26, 2026 Enterprise, and I will now open the public hearing at 7:23 p.m. I'll ask if the license holder would like to speak. Okay. I'll now ask if there are any general questions from the public, if they'd like to come up and speak at this time. Seeing none. Councilors, do we have any questions on this item? I know that we got some background information on this, but do you have any questions of town staff or the license holder?
I have a question. There seems to be confusion as to who holds the license, but the business is currently operating, if I believe, and I would hate to put someone out of business when they need to straighten out their paperwork. I mean, maybe we could, vote to give them 60 days or 90 days or something to correct the paperwork.
Do we have any further detail on the operations and the exact timeline? And I know there may have been some misrepresentations here in the paperwork.
I think there'll be a misrepresentation of paperwork. Deb, you want to give us just a brief synopsis of this? Because this was an existing holder.
The 2025 Class 2 license holder did not renew his license in time, so that can't be renewed. And the owner of the building submitted paperwork for Class 2 indicating that the current person there wasn't going to be there. So that I took it as they weren't going to no longer be in business at that location. So when I put it in front of the board, it was because I thought that the current Class 2 license holder was no longer there, but when in fact they were there. But he didn't come in front to me until December 23rd, which is too late to renew his license for 2026, so he no longer has a license there, the Class 2 license.
I think in terms of your direct question, Councilor Ellenberg, the person that was given this license isn't actually the existing business owner that the license was issued for this past fiscal year. So it was just misrepresented in the application process, so it isn't actually the existing license.
Is there opportunity for him to correct his situation, do you think?
The previous person or the current
The
one?
current person?
But it's up to the council, I think, because.
It's up to the council. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been discussion with this gentleman. He was invited to come here as well, and they didn't appear. So.
It's up to the council whether they want to.
Yeah, I think that the council, it's just my opinion, would move to revoke this and then restart the process. Could you just speak a little bit to what that process may be like so that the council is informed?
They would have to submit new paperwork for the Class 2, and then if they have all their paperwork, which is a lease or a deed, then it gets brought as a public hearing again, just like December 16th.
So what would be the timeline for all of that?
It takes about a month after I get the proper paperwork, so he would have to submit the proper paperwork to do his license.
I see. So probably 30 days worth that he would be potentially put out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
So
Whatever.
if I understand this right, technically, he wasn't authorized to be in business. We had a hearing here, and we didn't have the correct information.
Correct.
And we granted a license, which it had been material misrepresented. So
Right.
it-
Right.
I don't actually think we have a choice. I think we have to revoke the license and have the paperwork restarted all over again.
Yeah, I would agree.
And through you to the town manager, he was personally informed. I know we noticed public meetings, but he was informed that we would be speaking on this tonight.
Yep.
Yes, Deb communicated that
All right.
with him.
Okay.
He got a certified letter.
If we don't have any other questions, I'll close the public hearing at this time, 7:27 PM. And do any of the councilors want to make a motion to revoke the license?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion, councilors? Okay, all those in favor of revoking the license, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Just a
You have the right to,
question. Just a quick question. Will the owner be notified specifically?
yeah, and just a notice here is there will be a right to appeal the decision to a Justine of the Superior Court within 10 days of notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Order FY 26-044. This is for water system improvements loan authorization. This public hearing was advertised in the January 20th, 2026 Enterprise. I'll now open the public hearing at 7:28 PM, and I'll ask our town manager if he wants to make any comments on this one.
Yep. We've discussed this a couple of times. When we had first issued this ordinance, we were looking to have a, IMA and a short-term interconnection with Middleborough. We needed to be able to pay for that. So this is why we had this loan authorization. Obviously, we've had an opportunity to apply for a grant of $2 million, which will help augment the costs associated with that. But, as we discussed this, we still thought it was prudent for us to move forward with this because there's obviously still more work that needs to be done long-term with our water system. So we're still maintaining that we would like to have loan authorization. For example, one of the grant opportunities, when we submitted the grant as part of my last update, we threw the kitchen sink at a variety of things that we could try to fund. There was more than $2 million of expenses associated with water system improvements. So, one of the things we've considered is having another alternate treatment trailer system for Vernon Street. We want to have the flexibility to move quickly on this. So we are still advocating for this authorization to give us that flexibility to do the work that we need to do to make sure we resolve this.
Thank you for that. Are there any general questions from the public? Please come up and speak at this time if you have any general questions. Okay, seeing none. Would anyone from the public like to come up and speak in favor? And seeing none. Anyone from the public like to speak in opposition? And seeing none. Councilors, do we have any questions of our town manager or any comments on this one?
Yes, I just wanted to know that if we are awarded the grant, when would the award be?
I don't know exactly when it would be. We've had communication with DEP in terms of the submission that we gave. I'm imagining that it would be fairly responsive. I think it would be 30 to 45 days. But I don't know exactly when. But that's probably generally the timeline we would probably see that.
I had seen something on Facebook which confused me that we were not eligible for the $2 million until 2027. Was that misinformation or is?
That is not any information that has been relayed to me.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be able to follow up with you on that. When I
Okay.
spoke with the DEP commissioner about this, that wasn't represented to me.
I just wanted to clarify where the grant was, what the status is, what the town's done.
Yep. We applied for a grant as part of the last town manager's update. We applied for the grant. We got some feedback. Like I said, we threw the kitchen sink over there. We threw quite a few expenses, more than $2 million worth. They gave some feedback. We had a meeting with them today. They wanted to refine some of our language, et cetera. So we will do that work and and respond to that. And obviously when we get a response from them, we will relay that information to you all.
Just clarification, we're asking for a $1.5 million loan authorization.
Correct.
Just further clarification, it says on here that $1.5 million is appropriated to be expended for the purpose of financing the design and construction of upgrades. And then an explanation, it says this loan authorization would allow DPW Water Supply Division to fund system improvements and to address water quality and capacity issues. Specifically, this loan authorization will provide funding for procurement of water from the town of Middleborough. Is it for the design, or are we paying for the water from Middleborough?
Well, one of the things that this grant does apply that we did get clarification for, this grant does cover the procurement of water from Middleborough. Remember when we did this loan authorization, we didn't know about that grant opportunity. We obviously were advocating for it. So if you look at the language, it's pretty broad to say that it's temporary treatment facilities, emergency time facilities, construction, and a variety of things here. The language is broad enough for us to do that work, but in terms of the grant would pay for the costs associated with the purchase of the water from Middleborough. That is eligible expense.
This appropriation is going towards what specifically?
It gives us some flexibility. For example, like I mentioned, was the temporary treatment trailers. You know, if there's an opportunity to get another treatment trailer, for example, to do the Vernon Street wells. You know, one treatment trailer, especially if it's a long-term treatment trailer, which is maybe something that we consider, as we mentioned before, is pretty extensive, right? That grant will cover the Middleborough cost of, the Middleborough procurement of water, the construction related to it, but also pay for one of these treatment trailers. This loan authorization could pay for another one, for example. It gives us flexibility to do that.
So the appropriation is flexibility for us to determine at some point how the money's going to be spent.
Correct. And that, and I think once we've talked about this a couple of times, if we're going to utilize that loan authorization, we're going to come tell you what we're doing on the work that's related to it. It's not just a blind authorization.
Okay.
Having dealt with federal grants in the past, is there any potential for, I'll change the way I'm going to ask this. Federal grants are very specific in what you can spend the money on. So I know this provides some flexibility. Does this potentially leave money on the table for the grant if we're not able to spend all the grant money that we get, if we do get the grant money?
We're going to spend every cent of that grant money.
So that,
if we get
I guess
$2 million.
does the grant span enough things that we will be able to use those funds for, like, to completely use those funds? In other words, we're not.
Absolutely.
If
Yeah, I
it-
understand your question. Sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
I understand your question. There's, as I mentioned before, on our grant application, we submitted more than $2 million worth of expenses. I think I've talked about, you know, we've looked at alternative, another Blue Drop, for example, work associated with that. Unfortunately, that's not something covered under the grant now based on their parameters of the grant. But we have more than $2 million worth of expenses that we would allocate to that.
Okay,
so.
I'm just trying to make sure I clarify, because we approved this, we could spend this on some water from Middleborough in the short term, but I also don't want to see grant money tied up specifically for water from Middleborough when we've already paid for that water and then we can't use the funding.
No, we will,
Yeah.
and one of the other things, the good thing about this grant is it is retro, I think, to some October date.
Okay.
So in terms of paying for the Middleborough water, it is an eligible expense under the grant. We're going to use the grant to pay for that. So
Okay.
it'll be a reimbursement process of that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anything further, councilors? Okay. So then I will close the public hearing now at 7:35 PM. And will anybody like to make a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we'll now move into order FY 26-026, laying out and accepting a private way. This is for Magnolia Way. We did have our public hearing at our last meeting, and that was closed. So at this time, I would entertain a motion, and we could have a discussion. I know that some councilors had some questions for our DPW director, who's here in attendance. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the way.
We have a motion for approval. Do you have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. So do any councilors have any questions of our DPW director who's here? I know that there are some questions about the street acceptance, because this was one of the larger ones that we've seen. So does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Thank you, Azzo. So are we also responsible for the sidewalks?
Correct. That's all part of the road layout.
So did they start building this in 2015? All these roads?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So for the past 11 years, they've been doing the plowing and taking care of the roads?
Yes.
So that's my problem. I don't see why we should have to take care of them now. But
Yeah, my question would be, can you speak to the amount of incurred costs and liabilities that the town takes on. Obviously, we just got a lot of snow, so it's the top of everyone's mind. And it is kind of be a precedent that we do these street acceptances. Can you kind of speak to that increased kind of load on your department?
Yes, sir. Well, that's a very good question. But under the subdivision control law 41L, when a developer comes and files for subdivision development, they have to meet the requirements of the municipality in terms of the design and construction of the subdivision roadways and infrastructure. Once they have met those requirements, it's incumbent upon the municipality to accept those roads, because those residents that live on those roads do their due diligence and they pay taxes in town, and so they are entitled by statute that the road be accepted. And we inspected the road work. We called out the errors in the construction with the drainage system. They addressed those. We called out the deficiencies in the construction of the sidewalks. They addressed that. So they have met all the requirements for construction of those roads. And so it is incumbent upon the town to accept those roads under 41L.
Thank you for that explanation. Dr. Perry.
Thank you, Azu. And I agree with you that it's definitely, on the town to accept them. Now, I just wanted to go over the punch list for this particular road. Everything was met on the punch list that the town required?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you so much.
That's correct.
Any other questions, councilors? Yes, I think the council, speaking for myself, appreciates the clarification that the roads, the projects are acceptable, and that you personally feel comfortable with the council, moving forward. And I know that you guys already went through this process, but it's just good to hear from you that you feel comfortable moving forward, and for us taking the responsibility of those roads.
Actually, I personally inspected all the drainage infrastructure work at that site.
Perfect.
And I made over 1,500 feet of pipe removed and replaced. So it was done properly.
Great.
Just one quick one. I'm going to put you on the spot, Azu. Do you have any idea what statute that is, or where?
41L.
41L?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and MGL?
Yes. And that's the subdivision control law.
Great, thank you.
Anything further? Okay. So we do have a motion on the table. We're at discussion period. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay. Well, all those in favor of approval of the acceptance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is he going to have to come back up for every single one?
Probably fine. Okay. Similar, FY 26-027 is up next, laying out and accepting a private way. This is for Hickory Lane. We did already have our public hearing at our previous meeting, so we would look for a motion for approval and second for discussion.
Motion to accept the
Second.
way.
Motion to accept, and then we have a second. So this is tied into the previous item. Is there any further questions on this one in particular? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And lastly, also tied into this, FY 26-028, laying out and accepting a private way. This is for Sycamore Lane. Our public hearing was also had at our previous meeting, so similar to the last two. Do I have a motion for approval and second for discussion?
Motion to accept the way.
Motion to
Second.
accept and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we do not have any licensed transactions. We'll now move into presentations. We have Dr. Hunt from the Energy Committee.
Sorry, I hope this works. Brad? Oh, I'm patient. So, thank you.
been waiting for this for 3 years. Thank you.
You gotta talk up, Carlton.
Can you hear me now?
You might want to lift it up so that,
I'll do the thing. I may not be strong enough. Thank you. Sorry about the delay. Been waiting for this for some time. Basically, I wanted to give you a briefing. First of all, to introduce you to the Energy Committee. I've been chair for several years. Kristen Zarelli is the secretary. We have one vacant place. I really appreciate the help of Lisa Sullivan, who's the Southeast Regional Coordinator for the Green Communities, and our town staff, Mr. Town Manager, Shane O'Brien, Lori Guarini, Ashley Prees, and Josh McGraw are all instrumental to making this work successful. Presentation outline, basically I'm going to go over the history and role of in charge, because I don't think people really understand how long we've been in business. The outcomes from the 2008 Green Communities designation, there's some really good news. And then another good news is the municipal solar supply that we have in town. And then I want to talk a bit about opportunities and regulations updates. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those slides because they're in your packet, but there are opportunities. I also believe in beginning with the end in mind. I'm not going to read this, but there's a lot of takeaways here as far as I'm concerned. There's sustainability and energy goals in our master plan. There's significant funding opportunities. Fireworks Circle Solar Facility has reduced our municipal electrical energy and cost and increased revenue. Solar facilities on private property have higher economic value relative to commercial values, and then significant future grant opportunities are available if we adopt the specialized energy code. That has to happen, and then we need some professional work because I can't keep doing this for a long time. The Energy Committee was created in 2006 by the Board of Selectmen. It was appointed prior to the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Under the Master Plan Implementation Committee, that was the committee. The 2002 Master Plan did not have a way to implement, and so the Board of Selectmen at that point appointed a committee, of which I was appointed to. The Energy Committee requirement came up because of Green Community. In order to become a Green Community, you had to have an Energy Committee. So we combined those two, and the town meeting adopted the Green Community designation, and the state designation became effective in July of 2012. That committee continued until we changed the form of government, and also separated out the Energy Committee from other committees specifically. The Admin Code Energy Committee section, Parts A and B. I'm only going to focus on a couple things here. Part B, the authorities and responsibilities. The Energy Committee is charged with advising town officials, so we're an advisory committee, advising town officials on energy conservation efforts throughout the town's physical plant, including, but not limited to, municipal buildings, school buildings, streetlights, vehicles, and equipment. Committee may recommend methods to monitor and manage energy costs. The other part of that is the committee shall advise concerning applications for grants from federal and state sources and recommend changes to the town ordinances as necessary. Only one point here. The committee shall meet at least annually with the town council to apprise the committee, should be the council, of issues pertaining to energy conservation and renewable energy. It's supposed to be a meeting with the committee. Traditionally, we have done just a presentation, not a meeting, joint meeting. I don't think that may need to be changed in the admin code. I think it's necessary, not necessary to have a deep discussion with the two bodies. Not going to get into details on this one, but other than what the Green Community designation benefits are, reduced energy, building access, grants, that type of thing. So that Green Community designation opened that up for us. The criteria for becoming a green community was have as of right siting of renewable energy and alternative energy zoning. There were 3 options provided. We had to find a 50-acre parcel, which was on Elm Street, that was identified for non-energy use. Basically, the criteria were met, well, we had to have that in the application. That parcel now is commercially developed, but not for energy. Criteria 2, expedite application and permitting. We've met that location because we have expedited permitting. Criteria 3, the town council in 2011 approved the energy reduction plan. And criteria 4, purchase only fuel-efficient vehicles. The council approved that back in 2011 again. 2011. And finally, the criteria to minimize life cycle costs. Bridgewater adopted the stretch code, which is adopted automatically every time the state updates that code. Very busy slide. Basically, what we've achieved is building efficiency upgrades, police station, senior center, public library, fire department, DPW, Barnes, water department. Number of pumps were upgraded, including at the golf course. And we had some operator training so this building here could run better. The golden piece on this one is the street light conversion that was done back in 2021. And then the EV charging stations were part of this whole program. The financial bottom line is we've received about $1.5 million of grant money from green communities. National Grid credits are about $250,000. DOR discounts $75,000, and Bridgewater funds have been about $192,000. So the town has not invested a lot of money, but we've got a lot of grant money under the green communities to improve. This is a slide that simply talks about the energy consumption. Since our inception back in 2009, we have a baseline. Basically, you see it's a fairly flat curve, but it increases. I don't know if this is going to show. It increases slightly, peaking in 2020 and then falling off fairly sharply. This also just talks about the change from baseline. One of the things Green Community required was that we reduce our energy costs by 20%. We haven't achieved that yet, but we're maybe getting close to being equal to what it was. If you look at here with the baseline and where we are now, we're just slightly above that. This is a busy slide, but I present it to you so you know what we monitor. Diesel, gas, gasoline, oil, and propane are the fossil fuels, and electricity is also monitored. And that shows the trends over time for each of those. And you see, again, just another way to present the total use curve. This is basically based on use. And this covers buildings, vehicles, heating, recreation, open space, water and sewer operations, street lights, all of the, every account we have in town. Fossil fuel use, I only show this because I wanted to make the point that our largest fossil fuel use is for diesel and gasoline, which support our public safety departments, our police department, that kind, highway department. The only other thing I'll point out is of the fossil fuel pieces, we've been able to reduce propane use. We had a number of accounts for propane, and we've reduced that. Excuse me. This always happens to me. I lose my fluid. So that's just another trend to show how detailed we track things, and we do this on a monthly basis. Here's the golden piece. This is the street light cost. The use up until 2019 was about 1,700 units, and the cost was over $10,000. When we upgraded to LEDs, the amount used went down by 65%, and the cost went down by 85%. So basically, our annual cost that we're avoiding is $176,000. That's the other side of the coin for financial management. Where can you save money? And this is one of those. And by the way, the payback for the town investment was about a year and a half. This one, I'm not going to spend time on, but one of the goals is to reduce greenhouse gas. The Massachusetts Energy Initiative database tracked all this up until 2020, and this particular chart showing that we have decreased our greenhouse gas trends by about 24%. But I don't know how the recent data. I'm going to spend a wee bit of time on the aggregation. I wanted just to point out, energy use most often goes up in the wintertime, not in the summertime. It goes down in the summertime. That's why National Grid and the state have these two periods where you have changes in the supply cost rate. The energy aggregation, of which I'm talking about my personal household, we used about 1,400 kilowatts in December. And I was on a third-party supplier at 19 cents, and I was paying about $260 a month then. The energy aggregation is saving me $85 a month. So that's a positive for the energy aggregation program. Not to belabor it, but it's really, it's a good thing for the town. And town manager showed you some of this last meeting, but I made more detail, basically 8,166 meters. This is meters, not people or anything. It's how many meters are in Bridgewater. That includes private, commercial, university, and I think school systems and churches, that kind of thing. About 84% of the people opted into that, and about 1,000 people didn't opted out. They probably had better rates, which is good. So that's just the take home on this is energy aggregation is saving people money. Again, no detail on this one. I'm going to not deal with it. You can read it. The Townhouse Reuse Committee secured a grant to do the building's roof repair, and thank you, Councilor Hunt, for that. Attic insulation was an adder under the Community Preservation Act. There are certain things under community preservation for historic buildings. You can upgrade them to modern mechanical electrical systems. So the figure you see on the left is down below here is what the attic of the townhouse looks like before the insulation was applied, and this is the above here is before, and this is the after picture. Unfortunately, we don't have any energy in that building
Yet.
yet. And I note here that there is a grant that Councilor has submitted for, and hopefully that will come through. And the CPC has also trying to procure an assessment of the historic interior. What do we need to preserve? Because that building is under a mass historic preservation restriction. Both minor and major changes to the building need to go through them. But this is an energy meeting, and I just wanted to know there's lots of sources for getting better energy. Okay, go next. I'm going to change to the future. The regional school districts can be eligible for a decarbonization grant regardless of whether or not they're in the green community. That's a new change. It was last year. It's a small pot of money. The next application, unfortunately, is due March 6th. The letter of intent is due in 3 days. I have communicated to the school. That would help replace things like stoves and kitchens and refrigerators, that kind of thing, if they can get that money. But I don't know if I haven't had any word as to whether or not they're pursuing it. But that's another opportunity Green Communities provides us. So I'm going to switch over to the municipal solar supply. You may or may not know that we acquire our municipal energy electricity from one of these two fields on Fireworks Circle. That became operational in August of 2015. A full fiscal year was not done, so all I'm presenting here is the fiscal years. In this graph below is the fiscal year up through 2025. The blue grant is the amount of energy we use based on the state tracking that gives us as an energy green community. The green is the solar supply. It's never been 100%, and the other trends are our energy use, electrical energy use is going down. Their supply is going down, but it could be weather. It could be the panels are getting more not as effective. But I just wanted to point out, Bridgewater has 57 electrical accounts. The solar rate that we pay right now, it increases 2% every year to 2035, I believe. It's 13. National Grid, according to the solar invoices that we receive, is 25. So we're saving significant money under that program. National Grid has not invoiced Bridgewater for funds since July of 2020, zero. All we pay for is the solar field right now, because we get cost credits, and we have over $1 million worth of credits tracked by the town right now. And the solar field provides tax money. Came out of 61A, became a developable land, and now produces money. This is a graph from the 2022 master plan that shows the higher the figure here, the bigger the ratio is building to land value. So building on top, land value below. As you guys know, if you look at your cards, typically your improvements are higher assessed value. So the more improvements are actually really high under solar fields, and the income is very high for solar fields. The thing that's important there is solar fields, if we develop them and they're on private land, they don't increase public safety that much. They don't increase schools costs, anything else. That's a really good source of revenue that doesn't have the downside of expenses to the town. Sorry. Come on. Okay. Got to do this again. Sorry. The comprehensive master plan has two items: that we were to investigate and promote alternative energy production storage on town-owned parcels. There's a reason for that, because if we do these things where we solarize schools and hospitals' roofs, parking lots, that kind of thing, there are great opportunities for income. This is a map I put together that shows, one, where the solar fields are in town. The red circles show the university. There's a the fireworks circle. There's another commercial field here. The ice rink also has solar. There's another solar field over here. So we've got a lot of commercial type solar or large user solar fields in there. There is an opportunity for a planned solar out on the former Halifax landfill. I met with those folks 4 or 5 years ago, and they're trying to level out that land, and there's 8 acres that they intend to solarize that would be in Bridgewater. So that would, again, is private property, increase taxes, and also betterment revenues. But the key is potential solar fields. There are a couple of fields at locations on the east side of town. There are several locations on the west side of town, including this parking lot for the golf course, and where the highway department puts their rubble in the top of a hill over here on the old Chafee Farm. There's a couple of small parcels here that are potentials. And then I'm just clicking here. In the downtown area, there are a number of possibilities. If you go in, zoom in a little bit, this is the regional school. There's lots of parking lots there that could be solarized. Again, they could get revenue from leasing that property for solar. The middle school, same thing, but Bridgewater owns that property, so there's betterment taxes. Central Square parking lot, that's small. The police station, they want solar there. The Marathon Park parking lot could use it. Williams School and the Mitchell School. So those are locations. I did a study. There are two things that are good for solar developers. How close are you to a 3-phase line, and how much capacity to take in electricity do those lines have? It gets complicated to do that, but being a technical person, what I said is to myself is, well, where's the best place? Let's ratio the and all this information I'm doing is based on data that I had generated. But I said, let's do the ratio between capacity and distance. The closer it is and the greater capacity makes it more attractive. And if you see here, the 32 here at the high school, There's Bridgewater High School property, Bridgewater Middle School property. All of these properties here are very high on the list. On the west side of town, it's not quite as good, but it's that. And I'm not going to go into it. I did a cost estimate, income estimate, and basically the town, depending on how these play out, the town could generate money and the school district could generate money. But the question is, does the town or Bridgewater Regional School District want to pursue these opportunities? I've talked a little bit with the town manager, and I think there's some interest there, but we'll figure it out going down the road together. Other opportunities, very quickly, there's a green communities opportunity. It's called the Climate Leader Community. There are some requirements to be in there. You can read about this in there, but you have to have a plan. And we meet two of the criteria, one being a green community in good standing, and the other one establishing a local committee. So we've done that, but there's other things to be done, and I'm not going to read these, but there's decarbonization commitment. There's also a decarbonization roadmap that needs to be developed. There's a policy that needs to be developed, and a specialized stretch code. But that specialized stretch code was recommended to this council 3 to 4 years ago, and it's stuck somewhere. It hasn't been initiated. That specialized code actually would open us up for more grant money. This is the Regional School District Decarbonization Grant. I'm going to skip that. Chris Hartman and I went to the Green Communities Leading by Example Summit this last fall, November, and these are just simply locations that we can go to find information out. This is the same thing, leading by example. Basically, the decarbonization measures such as building retrofits, heat pump installations, electrification preparation, those all become available to us if we become the higher level. Sorry, I'm just about done. A couple of other things we learned. Massachusetts has been really working on, and there have been issues here in town for solar field development. Massachusetts has been working on guidelines for that, and they just published a new set of guidelines to achieve balance between cost-effective ground mount solar development and long-term preservation of the Commonwealth's natural resources. So that's a good thing. And then there's an update for small clean energy infrastructure siting and permitting. This is specifically focused on municipal governments. It's for efficient siting and permitting of small clean energy infrastructure facilities by local governments. I'm not going to get into this because that's the timeline for all of the grants that are coming up. Again, very detailed, you can read it, but basically we need to consider whether or not we should have somebody on board that can actually do some of the work I've been doing, encourage the district to explore grants, that kind of thing. And it just goes on that we recommend. So my basic point here is, what's the town's commitment to energy conservation and production? I like the production side because I think we've dealt pretty well with conservation. And then is the additional energy committee appointment and community role going forward. So those are the updates that I have, and I wish to thank you for listening. Sorry if I stumbled a lot, and I put a lot of stuff on the table, but it's been a long time since I presented. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very thorough. I appreciate your presentation. A lot of information. Do our counselors have any questions for Dr. Hunt?
Not a question, just a comment. I want to thank you for all your dedication and how much work you put into this and for giving it to us ahead of time so we could look at it and review it.
If you have questions going down the road, please get a hold of me. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a personal comment, which is my husband and I have solar on our house, and it has cut our electric bill by 50%. That's just a little bit of personal testimony there.
It's a good thing. I didn't talk about wind, but that's a topic for another meeting. There are some small wind capabilities. A developer here in town that has one that weighs 500 pounds and can generate, engineers understand this, will generate wind at 3 miles an hour, up to hurricane speed. So,
very good.
Anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I appreciate the input, the time that you put into this presentation. I do have concerns about solar panels because when we change the open space to solar fields, it alters the temperatures of the land, and that impacts both plant and animal life as well as the ecosystem. And these panels get so hot that they cremate insects and they burn the feathers off the birds as they fly low. The other thing that I've learned, that the solar infrastructure that is put into the ground to support the panels are concrete and galvanized metals. And from these, zinc leaches into the ground. And samples of these areas tested high in zinc. So because of this, farmland and open spaces are forever lost. And then we have to consider the safety issues of putting solar panels on roofs, because the solar panels make roofs so heavy that when we have a fire, that the risk of the collapse is extremely high. You can ask the fireman about that. And when the solar panels are on fire, they release chemicals like silicon reacts violently with water, which produces hydrochloric acid and hydrochloric gas. And I've looked for the end of the life of these panels, and they become solid hazard waste, and that meets the definition of toxicity. So we may have electricity, but we have to look into what we're doing to our land, the security of our fire department when they go into a burning house, and the millions of these solar panels that we can't get rid of because they're so hazardous. Because if you look what the chemicals these panels are made of, they call them a cocktail of chemicals. The compounds are extracted as a byproduct from zinc, lead, and copper mining, and they're all labeled highly toxic. So before we start building more, I would like to maybe that your energy committee would look more into this. I can give you the resources of where I've gotten this information from. So, but otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. With respect to solar on the roofs, talk to the university. They've got several large buildings that have that. They have more experience with it. I am an environmental scientist trained in trace metal chemistry and toxicity, so I'm happy to talk with you, but any of the research we'd be most happy to receive. Thank you.
Anything else, councilors? I just have one question, because you've spoken about it a number of times, we've heard about it. How would solar panels in the police station parking lot, how would that physically look like? Are these elevated? Can you park under them? Like, how would that practically look?
If you want to see one, go down to the university at the stadium there. They've got a parking lot solar.
Solar roofs down there.
Okay, so it would look like that then, yeah.
Yeah, it would look like that. I've gone to Norton High School, they've got them. They're, they're engineered structures. You can't make them beautiful, but the reason the police station wants them is because they can put the cars under there and not have to deal with all the snow that falls on them. So there are other reasons to do that. And to Mary's comment, Councilor McGrath's comment, I understand the house issue, but I'm talking about here in town. We have an old parcel, about 20 acres, where the highway got sand from, and that's no longer used for sand. And that has a large open space, and it has berms on either side, and it could be very good. And in other cases, that kind of thing developed correctly can help the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hunt.
So I'm going to try to shut this off.
Oh, yeah, that's all right.
Just unplug it.
Thank you. You're the technology expert.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hunt, again for that presentation. We'll now move into our town manager's report.
All right, I'm going to have a couple departmental reports. I'll have Brad really quickly talk about the website update, just touch base on some of the stuff that we're doing here. Brad, go ahead.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. Just want to talk a little bit about our website. We started the new year with the launch of a new town website. The site was redesigned to be more of a service-based structure, make it easier for residents to find information, complete tasks, and access services without having to navigate to multiple departments. As a part of this redesign, we also transitioned the website to a .gov domain to improve our security, confirm basically our site authenticity, and build greater trust in our online services. So my team is starting to use Google Analytics to see how residents use the site, which will help us identify what additional buttons, links, and shortcuts we can add to the site over time. I did want to mention, in full transparency, during our transition to our new website vendor, we did lose some functionality that residents have commented about. For example, one thing being calendar alerts for meetings. That is something that we are working on. My team and I are actively working with our vendor to come up with a solution for that, because that is not something that's a part of the basic structure of the new website. Residents can open a calendar item right now, and there's an ICS button that's in there, which they can download to any of their private calendars. It will store that calendar item in their personal calendar, so it will come up. But right now, we are working with the vendor to come up with a solution for that. But that is my quick little update on our website.
Brad, thank you, through you to Brad, I thank you for all the work that you've done on it. I want to know if we see something that is a 404 error, where should we be directing the info to let you know?
Actually, today we have created, you can definitely send us an email, send my team or myself an email, so we can definitely update it. I am creating a bunch of forms that we started creating today. One of them is a website feedback form that will be, hopefully by the end of the week, will be on our website. So if people do find errors, we can fix them as soon as possible. I do know one thing with our transition from the .org to the .gov. We've had the .org has been around for 25 years.
Right.
So there's a lot of sites out there that have that stored. We do have a redirect that's out there that will redirect it to the new site, but it took Google probably, I think it was like 5 weeks in order to finally crawl our new site to get rid of a lot of those old shortcut links, and it will start eventually. I think looking in Google Analytics, it didn't start actually crawling our page until January 20th. So a lot of those links are going to start to be built now that it's finally crawled the page. It can look and see what people are looking at, and we'll start building those links. But right now, there are some of those links that are broken because it's looking at the old site that doesn't exist right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great.
One of the things that I think, just to emphasize on that point, the crawling of the website, it's not as simple as just us requesting Google to do that. You got to bear a little bit of time with us. We've put in requests for some time, weeks, and it takes them to take the notion and that work to crawl the site and make sure. But we did, as Brad mentioned, we have a feedback form. Please bring it to our attention. We're obviously trying to work with our, website vendor. As I mentioned before, the decision to shift here was made before we came here. We lost some parameters. So, we want to get feedback from the community and try to navigate as best as possible with the platform that we obviously transitioned to. So we appreciate the patience as we transition.
In the meantime, while the form is kind of being rolled out, do we just send you an email if we have something?
That's
Okay.
perfectly fine.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll have Azu briefly talk about our DPW storm response. Before Azu speaks to it, I think it was important,
My mic is off, sorry. To speak about our storm response to the previous storm, I just want to say I'm very proud of our team and how we responded to that storm. I'm going to have Azu, come on up, Azu, talk about our staffing. But, our team spent over almost 55 hours over storm response and had a 5-hour break during that time. So, even though it was pretty good response from the community, understand, hey, we've got to prioritize the roads. I know there was some concern about getting to sidewalks. And so we'll just really briefly talk about that response. So I want to, thank Paul and his team for their work that went into that. So we'll briefly talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. So, as you all know, we haven't had this level of snowstorm in more than 10 years. And I could have sworn Bridgewater tends to get a lot more snow than any community in the area. But as of Sunday, the 25th, our staff reported for plowing at 9:15 on Sunday morning, and worked through the night and plowed until Monday. And eventually, after 3 p.m. on Monday, we said, you guys need to go get some sleep, okay? Because you can't work 24/7. And moving big machines, plowing, that can become counter-effective and actually cause accidents. And so we sent them home to get 4 hours of sleep, and then they came back. We also had the over 30 contractors helping. And interestingly enough, with all that work, we had guys work 55 hours. 55 hours in a 2.5-day period. And that was led by our highway superintendent, who doesn't get much recognition. He doesn't like coming out to yap his mouth like I yap my mouth, but he's been doing a great job with his staff. And we did our de-icing, and when we thought the snow was all done, well, we got another 3-4 inch, and we call everybody back. And as I'm speaking, there's some guys out cleaning some more sidewalk, moving all the piles that we have at intersections. Because when you plow in this unprecedented level of snow, you have to do some stockpiling around intersections. But then the next day, we've been moving those, stockpiling them at the highway yard. So I think the response was very good, and they're still cleaning. The cleaning operation has not abated, but the intensity of the operation is tapered down quite a little bit.
Any questions for our DPW director?
Just to thank you for the hard work, and that amount of time is over and above. The area in my district was done pretty well. The side streets are tough. I'm in a condo complex, so the condo folks do the driveways and different things. I'm amazed to find out that there is no requirement in this town for business owners and citizens to clear sidewalks. I'm used to that in other communities, and it's just amazing. Like, I tried to go to a business after the storm, and you guys had done a great job, but the business where I tried to walk didn't clean the sidewalk.
Well, that is above my pay grade. I think that's a local ordinance that the council can implement, but I will leave it up to the council. I'm not here to make recommendations as to what you will do, but I will not be adverse to that.
Observation.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, just thank you, and thank you for your team. My dad had a similar position as you did, and I remember every time it snowed, he would be gone for a couple days, and I know that you guys work really, really hard, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I think as we've had, Azu, you could probably stay up because we're going to do the water update next, real briefly. Is just for context, for our team in the highway department, 6 full-time heavy equipment employees, 2 mechanics, 1 superintendent, 1 general foreman, 2 part-time retired employees, and 1 administrative staff. You know, as part of our budget process, we've had to reduce staff there as well. So once again, I do want to credit the work that we did there, but also understand that once we focus on the roads, and then once we do that road work, we then prioritize sidewalks, and particularly 1 mile radius to the schools, and then the downtown area. So, you know, just want to bring that in context. We don't make decisions to open or close school, but that's our process, and I thought it was very important to inform you all in the community and how we approach this in these sort of storm events. Okay?
Thank you.
And then briefly on the water update, I mean, I think our last update was we applied for the grant. We're still obviously getting water from Middleborough. We still have some time regarding that MOA with Middleborough. I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some more information regarding, you know, Vernon Street opportunities. some alternative sources of water, both local and external. We'll have some updates on the treatment trailer. I did say that, if once we heard from Mr. Andrews and his team, I think this week, I did get an email from them with some information. We'll look at that as a team, and then obviously we're going to present some information to you in the coming weeks about opportunities that we have to take a look at our water infrastructure. But Azu, if there's anything else to really briefly add to that, we'll have more of an update in the following meeting.
Well, thank you, Town Manager, Councilor Davis. The team, by the way, as part of that operation, cleaning the roads, we did have our staff from the Water Division and the Sewer Division help with doing that work as well. So I'll give a shout out to those guys as well. The good news for us is that investment into getting some water from Middleborough has paid off in the sense that our water towers have come back to the levels that we can at least go to sleep and know that we can fight fire with the stable supply that we have. Also, the issue with the discoloration from the manganese with the wells that we have finally turned off, well 10, we haven't had that issue. And I'm sure you haven't heard that issue because you haven't been getting those phone calls and there were aggravations. So your investment, listening to the statement made earlier about the loan authorization, what you have invested in the town, it's very good. And it's money well spent. And I can tell you as a taxpayer in town, I don't have a problem paying for that either because it's good for us. So we are working on that, and I think the town manager covered what we wanted to cover in terms of the different sources that we are exploring. But I can assure you we've been working tirelessly with our team. The water superintendent is doing a great job, and the treatment guys are doing a great, I mean, it's just we want to make sure that we have good water, and we're getting there. But I did hear years ago, the state put on the, in the tunnel for the big dig. It said the Rome was not built in a day. If it was, we would have hired their contractors. So, so we're going to get that there with our water as well.
Blue Drop is back and working?
Not quite, because there's some little work that we need to do to make sure that that machine is operating the way it's supposed to. And we read the riot act to the vendor.
I was just going to say something that's dawning on me that seems so ironic, that we are piled with white snow and desperate for water.
Yeah.
So just seems like we should be able to do something with it. I know we can't, I'm just joking, but anyway.
Well, but actually, it is good, not for plowing, but it is good for replenish our aquifers.
Actually, the notion of the Blue Drop, and I know we've said this a couple times, I actually included in my operational update, but I think it's a good opportunity to just say that again, is that, there's a couple things with Blue Drop. One, we were looking for a grant to help pay for additional, use the grant funds to pay for an additional Blue Drop. So we were looking at a location, a suitable location. We looked at a variety of town locations, and a lot of them, for example, we looked at the senior center. That was an ideal place because it would change part of their operations. We looked at, rec fields, et cetera. We're looking at the old town hall. So we're looking at still doing that work. That's something that we're actively looking at. We've talked with Chief Del Monte. We had another conversation, another town building. But also with the current infrastructure that we have, this is, it's got to operate with the weather conditions as well. That's part of what's kind of been an issue with this. But also with the current Blue Drop, we're looking at expanding the size because the current tank isn't, we feel, sufficient for that. So these are things that we're looking at. We're actively working on this. It's not as simple as just, let's change it now. I've had we've had this discussion, I think, over a month. I told my team, I'd like to see this done. Give me some solutions. These are some thoughts. And we've gone down the line trying to at least address adding another one and making sure the one that we have is, operational as best as possible, because we know people do rely upon them. So.
I have a comment, and I believe I sent this to you, Mr. Town Manager, ahead of time. There is another grant for drinking water supply protection and for the funding of the purchase of land or conservation land. And so I'll be bringing that to your attention, or I guess I already did. And hopefully we can get some more funds for our long-term water solution.
Well, I'll quickly address that as well, because I think it's important for people to understand some decisions. One, I will say there was a commitment. I did say this to the council. I've said this publicly. Really want to take, one, we've got to address the immediate situation. I've always said there's short-term responses. Part of that was Middleborough. There's intermediate solutions. Part of that's the treatment trailers, et cetera. There's the long term. That's, do we invest in, what opportunities we have? And one discussion has been about the Andrews property. One's been about Vernon Street. One's been about, previously Taunton and Brockton. I'm going to present all that information to you. But, just as we were having a conversation, I think it was public comment, but we've had this conversation about revenue for the town. We need more revenue. Decisions to purchase property and take them off our rolls reduces revenue. So we've got to take these decisions holistically. How I'm approaching this with this team is get as much information available to the council and to the community. Obviously, we'll have a recommendation how we move forward, but you need that information before you make decisions haphazardly with half information. So in terms of that grant, I'm aware of it. We'll explore it. I don't know if that's a grant that we apply for, but I'm aware of the grant.
Any other questions, councilors? I have a few, so I'll go last.
I was just going to ask a follow-up to that. You mentioned you bring the recommendations to the council. Is there a timeline for that, or when you plan to bring those recommendations of the long-term? What was it?
You stole my question.
Excuse me, what? No, I heard the question. The
John.
timelines. Yeah, I think as we get that information, for example, I got an email just yesterday in regards to the Andrews property. We need our time for the team to take a look at that. You all are aware that we've had discussions with Brockton about opportunities with the desal plant. As those conversations emerge, we'll give you that information. They've got to obviously go through their procurement process there, but we've had multiple meetings with them. Obviously Verdon Street, that's a conversation. We've had a preliminary conversation, a preliminary presentation to the council previously as part of the master plan. What I've tasked Helen Gordon and the Apex team is, one, we want to focus on getting the treatment trailers, right? I want to make sure we get these short-term, immediate situations done. Gives us the time to, do the work that's required. So we'll have another updated presentation regarding that. But I want to make sure we get the treatment trailers in place so we can have those water sources available. So I think within, some couple of months, weeks, hopefully, we'll be providing that information as soon as possible. I think you all know this as well with me. I don't ever want to give you, I wish I can give you the information yesterday, right? I don't want to make promises that we don't deliver. So as soon as we do know, I'm going to share that with you. That's what I've said. I think that's what I've done since I've been here. So that's what I will stick to. Sure.
At one point.
Yeah.
Just to make you aware, though, acquisition of, I know there's been conversations and discussions about acquiring new properties to develop, okay? All those properties are still within the same Taunton River Basin.
Mm-hmm.
You explore those, you still have to go through the process of developing those wells, worrying about manganese, worried about iron. That's just the nature of the aquifer that we have. So a lot of those properties that may potentially be available, they are all interconnected, okay? And so we have to be mindful of that, geez, I found 50 acres there. It's the same thing. You still got to deal with the treatment issues and water quality issues. And so those are the things that you have to be mindful of.
We could have a long conversation with that, but, obviously there's there's a long conversation. There's DEP approvals, there's DEP impact on withdrawal permits, the monetary costs associated with it. So that's why there's a lot of information. It's not just simply acquiring property. There's a lot of information that needs to go along with that, and that's what we will present to you as we get that information.
Yeah, I would like to see a high level. I know that, and I respect that you guys want to give us the accurate information, and it should be presented well, but I don't want perfection to be the enemy of good here. I'd like to see a high-level comparison of what does it look like to hook up to the desal plant. It doesn't require any sort of infrastructure and upgrades or improvements on our end. So can we see what the costs are associated with that? Can we see a timeline on that? We know, generally speaking, from previous presentations, what Vernon Street would cost, but can we get an update on that? And then if we were to explore other sources, can we get an idea of what that would cost? Because I think the council needs to understand what's the next step look like. And I think, just as a reminder to everybody, we do have the emergency interconnection right now. The treatment trailers will be able to treat water that's coming out of the ground at Plymouth Street. But obviously, as we all know, we need additional capacity. So how can we get there, and what's the best way to do it in a cost-efficient way? So a comment, but also a request, can we get some preliminary numbers at our next council meeting? It sounds like you guys are aiming more on a longer term, but I think there's enough information out there that we could at least start having that conversation so we could get things moving a little bit faster than just, continuing to talk about it.
I somewhat agree and somewhat disagree.
Yep.
And I'll explain why I disagree. For example, if you just get information, because I think it's at least from this council, we've heard, one part is I think it's a 3-track of some of the future considerations. One has been this address about the Andrews property. We just got information regarding that yesterday. There's no way to sort of give information off of that without looking at that. That's our engineering team at Apex. As I mentioned before, the interim trailers are really, for us, the priority. There's a lot of engineering work that's going on to it. It isn't, once again, these are things that haven't been done in our community or in this Commonwealth. So really focusing on that. So, obviously we'll take a look at that information. We've had a high-level preliminary discussion about the Vernon Street. So I think we have enough information there. I think we can give some generalized information regarding that. Obviously, when you look at cost escalation, it's probably going to be more than the $40 million or so that was initially done. In terms of Brockton, that is a discussion with them. And so part of that's having an IMA, right, and negotiating with them. Because depending on how an agreement is done, the costs may look completely different. Is it a proportional on capital expenses or operating expenses? That's part of a negotiating process. So I really think that's important for us to complete that, because then, once again, I do agree with you that we give you a high level, because it isn't going to be perfect. We're going to say, hey, generalize, this is what it looks like, this is what are some of the pitfalls, where these are challenges, these are some of the opportunities. It's not going to be point by point, this is the thing, but it gives you the direction. So I actually agree with you there. That's the plan. That has been the plan all along. Just need a little bit more information.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to understand that, is it going to be in the tens of millions of dollars, or, single digits or so forth. And also the council, speaking for myself, we need to identify the fact that we can pursue other sources, such as, a connection to a desal plant, while at the same time exploring opportunities to have water here in Bridgewater. People talk about water independence, and I think that that's important, but we shouldn't seek water independent if it's going to take 3, 4, or 5 years, when we could have a connection that's going to help us in the interim that doesn't go against our withdrawal permit. So that's all things that I think that we should consider.
Just to kind of build off what you were saying, Mr. President, would it be possible to get some kind of time frame for what the general span would be for some of those different projects? So say a connection takes, X amount of months. A new well being drilled takes this time period. Maybe some of those, though they're really, macro level scale stuff of what the general timeframes are for that kind of development, not necessarily specifically Brockton or Vernon Street, but just in Massachusetts, what the general timeframe for that would be. Because I know we've gotten some time frame for High Street, which is great because it does give us some kind of parameter, and hopefully it's sooner than later. But we got something there, which is great because then we have something to point to. So I don't know if Vernon Street. I don't know how long it takes to drill wells at Vernon Street, or how long the process takes with DEP to even get that stuff instituted, to have them approve it, to then start a drilling process and then get a facility raised to do that kind of thing.
Yep. So that's absolutely what we intend to do.
Okay.
For example, we had a meeting with, once again, Apex and our team today, and that was one of the discussions that I had was, all right, when we come in, I want them to come in and provide those high-level discussions. One, it's good for the community to understand a little bit better, but obviously for you guys to understand it as well. So that's exactly what we talked about today.
Okay,
about
thank
doing.
you.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions. What's the, and you may have mentioned this earlier, but what's the treatment trailer completion potential date?
Probably, and this is based on the data that we currently have, probably about 3-4 months.
3 or 4 months?
4 months, if for the trailer, not the. I just want to make sure that we're talking the trailers at the well site, the well 10.
Yeah.
Yes, we are doing the pilot study now. Once we complete that and know that they're doing this survey right now because we do need a backwash area. So once they finish that survey, we can put together the construction RFP for the site work. But the trailer should be readily available once we identify the backwash location, as well as the area for the trailer itself. So the work, it's aggregate work, will probably be about 4 months to do the work. So.
I may have misunderstood, but I thought that when we started this, it was 3 months, and we were looking at March or April. Was that incorrect?
Well, 3 months, 4 months, yeah, right?
From the original start time.
From the original start date. I think that's still time frame because we have till April. One of the things that, for example, there's another opportunity. We identified the provider for, excuse me, the iron and magnesium treatment. For example, we have the procurement of that. For example, we're looking at opportunities to expedite that. They have a system. Initially, they would have to develop a system specifically for the town. They have one in place. We're working on an expedited notice of intent to move forward with that, where they already have one that they've already built that they can give to us based on our need. And then the other client that was built for, they could do, they could get the other one that's being developed. So in terms of the timeline, we're going to still stick with the 3 to 4 month timeline that we said initially. We're looking at expediting that. So in terms of, if you're asking around April-ish, still looking around the April time.
Okay, because 3 to 4 months from now is quite different.
We're looking at February, and you're looking at the 4 months from February. I know
Yeah.
what you're looking at.
Okay. Our interconnection to Middleborough expires in March, so what are we doing about closing that gap?
I will let the town manager answer the question about possible extension of that agreement.
We'll talk about that afterwards, but I think there's a couple of opportunities, as we said before. One, have redundancies and protect the community. Obviously, we appreciate the partnership with Middleborough in terms of the opportunity that we have there. And I said, the trailers, looking to expedite that if possible to make sure we're good there. But, I think our next update, I'll be able to give you some more information regarding that after I've had a discussion with the Middleborough town manager.
Last question. What's the status of building the pipeline between the Plymouth Street wells and High Street? Because I think we initially started talking about this in last March. We were talking about 1 to 2 years, 2 years at that point, and most recently we were talking about about a year. So how does that timeline look? I know that you guys are obviously prioritizing what you need to prioritize in the immediate term, but how does that timeline eventually look?
The timeline of 1 year from when we actually start the work is still firm. But we do have some items that we need to make sure that the facility at High Street will be able to indeed handle that level of water surge. So that's what we're looking at right now. And, but the timeline of 1 year is still the accurate timeline. But we need to do some more pilot study with the plant.
One of the amendments I'll make to that, for example, when we looked at obviously the PFAS results of 10A10B, you have to acknowledge that initially the plan was to do PFAS a little bit later on, 2030, and so forth. We've got to look at all these the challenges of this. That's why this trailer, for example, initially was iron manganese. Remember, initially was iron manganese. Then we had to transition to PFAS remediation too. So that's another component that we're adding to this treatment trailer. So the most important thing for us is get the treatment trailer in place, to put that, to treat the water source so we can put it into our distribution system. I think once we get that in place, one, it gives us the opportunity to take a step back, look at this. Do we do more work? Do we expedite PFAS remediation? What do we need to do for the High Street treatment plant? I think it gives us the time to take a step back, take a look, and provide a recommendation, a path forward in addressing these issues. Because it's not just iron and manganese, it's PFAS, there's a variety of things there. And, you know, I don't want to, as I mentioned before, sometimes in municipal government, it tends to be reactive. I think we need to be strategic about these opportunities. We have opportunity, for example, we had a meeting with the federal government about a WIFIA program. Which provides funding for us to do a lot of this work that we do. There's PFAS, low-interest loans that we have opportunity to do some of this work. How do we mitigate the costs on the users to do this work? There's a lot of things that go into that. I think once we get the treatment trailers in place so that we can utilize that water source, then we can make some of those decisions moving forward.
Zoo, can I just ask a follow-up? I guess really not a follow-up, but to my question last meeting, you've been here in Bridgewater for how long? How long have you been here at Bridgewater in your role?
Living in town or working in Bridgewater?
Working in the role that you're in.
Man, I'm going to be telling you pretty much how old I am.
I guess you don't have to answer.
No. I've been from the time I started doing conservation work. It's been 37 years.
So I guess my question is, and I asked the town manager this last meeting, the water in town has been an issue for quite some time, at least the 3 years that I've been on the board. It seems to have progressively gotten worse. Where have we missed the mark, and why have we not addressed this? Why has it gotten to this point where we're emergency connecting to other towns?
Very, very, very good question, and I will answer that. First of all, those 37 years, though, was doing conservation work. I've been only involved as director of DPW in 2021. When a lot of the work, the design work was done, that was done prior to 2021, before it went into construction. For example, the High Street plant. What is very important here is when High Street plant was done, while it was being constructed, and this is very important for everybody to understand, there was no issue about PFAS. Okay? There was no discussion about PFAS. So now you're doing work, you have that unfunded mandate to now retrofit your plant that you've already spent $80 million doing to deal with the PFAS. Okay? Number two, there was a lot of aging infrastructure. Prior to 2021, I could not begin to speculate on why some of those needed maintenance work wasn't done. But to the credit of the council and the town manager at the time, Michael Dutton, we decided to set up, make sure that you have accountability and the system for addressing some of those issues. You had, and I've heard, comments about having an advisory committee and a water committee. You had that all those years. And that system of governance was not adequate to look futuristically. Okay, so a lot of the work is being done. But part of the problem is that aging infrastructure. You only had Cavers Pond treatment plant for the whole town. Okay, and so that was one of the problems. A lot of the wells that you have were more than 50 years old. Okay? they were never serviced. They were not addressed. So those are the things that we've been doing. And then, so while you're doing that, you also have the state declared, now, this is not me making it up, drought. We've been in drought conditions for more than 5 years in the region, okay? So it's all issues coming to a head at the same time. And so I think you gotta take credit for the work, perhaps some of your predecessors in the council, for the work that they did and which you continue to do. Those questions that you're asking are very valid questions. But as I said earlier, we are now in the mix of doing all those issues. What the town manager said a minute ago, which I believe is very important, you have to do temporary work to give yourself an opportunity to do the rest of the work. So once we get the trailers in place, that gives us the breathing room to come back to you based on these questions you've asked and the directive that we have gotten from the town manager, which I'm not trying to pump him up because pretty soon I'm going to be retiring anyway. So I'm not looking for more credits, okay? But he has been laser focused on what we need to do about what, and I tell you, he's a pretty sharp guy. He's actually remembering more what I'm supposed to be talking than I am, and I'm wondering why I'm standing here. So, okay. So, but really, Paul, that's a great question, okay? But how we got here, I couldn't really tell you, but now we're here. I can tell you we're doing, I had to be doing this. And I'm older now, so I can't even reach my back to do that. But the point is, we're doing all we can, and we are not going to stop until we get it all done. But those trailers, once we have them online, that will give us the room to breathe and then come up with the timelines, cost-wise, for all these sources. We can do all that. We can actually do all that. And so, that's what we're going to do, and that's what we're doing.
High Street was mentioned, the treatment plant. Could we get the numbers at some point soon about what the max input-output capacity is of the plant itself and what the current status is with just the High Street wells and how much room we have there? I don't know if it's rated in gallons per minute, gallons per day.
Yeah.
But just because once we tie in, it was a question that was previously asked, and we were told that it can handle it. But I'm curious as to what it's currently set up for, if it needs to be outfitted for another well being hooked up to it. I'm assuming it was spec'd out for the well that it has. So if we could just get the hard numbers for it so that we could review it, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sue. The next item is regards, just an update. I know we talked about this some little bit of time ago, and I'm happy to report that I believe the Bridgewater Rainham School Subcommittee is looking at this MOU that's in the board's packet. I know there was some questions earlier on about our capital process and how the capital process was different for Bridgewater versus Rainham. So as part of that work, I've been discussing with the superintendent as well as the town administrator at Rainham. And so we reached a consensus on making sure we understand, one, we have a similar process. So high level, and this is all in the MOU, high level how the capital process moving forward is, and we did this past year, for example, in the fall, that's when the towns will consider capital from Bridgewater Rainham. It won't be during the May period that we typically have, because generally speaking, both of the committees fund them in the fall. Rainham did it this past fall at their fall town meeting. We appropriated a fall town council meeting. Both communities will get an appropriation or get an assessment. Appropriation will be transmitted from each of the respective communities at the same time, not a pay-as-you-go approach or a different approach for either one of them. Whatever the appropriation is sent to the respective town capital accounts that are going to be established, so for Bridgewater and for Rainham, and if any district-wide will be sent to a district-wide capital. The school committee will provide some quarterly reports on capital for us, and then the end-of-year capital report as well. So it's a transparent process, people will see those funds, but most importantly, because one of the things that occurred was that on the way that this town was doing is we would appropriate the funds, and if all those funds weren't expended, essentially, those funds would fall to E&D. And Rainham didn't have that situation because they were doing a pay-as-you-go approach. That will not occur anymore. Those funds will remain in those capital funds to be used for capital projects. So we have agreement on that. I appreciate the collaboration with Superintendent Powers as well as Town Administrator Barnes, and obviously the school committee as they consider that, but I think this is good for us. We'll have a clean, concise, same process for the communities moving forward. So I just want to provide that update for you all.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
No question. Question for the town attorney, and I think I've asked this in the past. The memorandum of understanding says it's entered between the town of Bridgewater and the town of Rainham and the Bridgewater-Rainham Regional School District. And at the bottom of the agreement, it has the town manager's name as a signee. My understanding is the town manager does not have the authority to sign on behalf of the town of Bridgewater without the approval or vote of the town council. Is that correct?
So the town manager has to seek approval to sign contracts requiring appropriation of funds. It's query if this one, I'd have to look at it more thoroughly, but query if this one actually calls for the appropriation of funds or outlines the process in which funds will be appropriated. So it's a little bit of a distinction.
Well, let's say funds not involved. My understanding is he still can't sign on behalf of the town of Bridgewater. It has to be us that delegate the authority to him to sign, correct?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to, I mean, I'm happy to look into it further, but the way that it works under our charter, a lot of the authorities to enter into contracts that relate to the services of the town or the processes of the town can be entered into by the town manager. I mean, we'll have to go through line by line to make sure, which I'm happy to do. I mean, obviously, we can do that. Sometimes those contracts are fine to be entered into by the town manager unless there's some caveat or carve-out that says, you know what, this has to be approved by the council before you can enter into it. Typically, those types of contracts are contracts whereby the council is going to be appropriating funds. That's the most typical context. An example of that would be how the town manager essentially negotiates a collective bargaining agreement, but then you're going to appropriate those funds, right? So then you sign off on it, or town manager negotiates a contract to build something, but you're going to have him sign off on it because you're going to appropriate those funds. There's some element of this that deals with the appropriation of funds, so it could be something that certainly I'm happy to look into for the town manager.
One clarification to that. There is an appropriation funds as part of this MOU. There's just understanding. But one thing I didn't add that I am glad that you brought that up, Paul, is that part of the agreement overall, there needs to be a sort of a review of this in terms of looking at the overall regional school agreement, and our commitment is to do that work. This is just to make sure we all understand that process moving forward, but we will obviously, the superintendent and the town administrator there, we've all collectively agreed that we're not looking to supersede that agreement. We'll come back and we'll obviously have to work that into as part of that agreement.
Yeah, I actually have no issue with what's written in the memorandum of understanding. I just have issue with you being able to sign on behalf of the town in that situation. And I only ask because if Bridgewater were to enter into a regional school district today, my guess would be the town manager couldn't do that on their own.
Agreed.
They would need the.
There's a different process for that, though.
Yeah.
This
But what
relates
if you're
to.
mending the same agreement?
Well, it's not the
no.
same agreement.
No.
So my understanding, and again, I don't have this agreement in front of me. I haven't looked at it. I haven't been asked this question. So obviously, I'm happy to look into this for you. But my understanding of this is only the manner in which the school, and I'm only going off of what I just heard, the manner in which the school district is saying, okay, these are our capital needs, and the town is essentially saying, okay, these are the dates, we're gonna look at those needs and decide if we're going to fund or appropriate those needs.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, again, I don't have it in front of me, I'm literally going off the 5 minutes I just,
And we're not, and I want that very clear, we're not amending the agreement because that is within my authority. It's just understanding how we're doing this process moving forward, but we do have to do the work to amend the agreement, and that isn't something that I would do by myself.
It does say in it, appointment and payment of the costs incurred by the district amended agreement between the town of Bridgewater and Rainham. So it says amended in that first paragraph. It says amended agreement.
Number 4.
Where are you seeing this?
Number 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, in the opening paragraph, it says it as well, too.
I mean, in fairness to the town manager, what I would say is, why don't you just provide us a list of your questions?
Yeah.
I can review and I can give you thoughtful, thorough answers.
Yeah, there.
No, okay.
Any other questions,
It's not
councilors?
amending, it says codify. So I would look at that as codify because if you look at the agreement, it is broadly based. So remember, this was when we, as part of the post-supplemented appropriation, DESI became involved, and once DESI became involved, it was quickly realized the way that the towns had been doing this appropriation was incorrect. They would not approve that process. So we want to make sure that we're doing this correctly based on DESI. So we're codifying that, hey, this is the process moving forward, which is in line with DESI. We're not amending the agreement. We obviously, if there's an amendment, once again, if you look at 5, the parties agree that this memorandum of understanding does not and is not intended to amend the amended agreement between the towns of Bridgewater and Rainham and Bridgewater Rainham Regional School District.
I mean, in the first paragraph, it says amended. I'm not going to go back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't,
No.
you know,
Well,
yeah.
Why don't you just give me a list of questions?
Yes.
And I'll talk to the town manager.
Anything else on this one, councilors? Okay.
Next item. In the packet, you have a pretty robust memo from myself, as well as a general budget forecast for this next fiscal year. I'm not going to go over the memo necessarily. I'm just going to highlight some key elements of it. I might have Lori come in just to provide a little bit other background, but I think some highlights of this preliminary budget forecast. I'm going to highlight this too. It's a preliminary budget forecast. This is a very early part of our process. This is looking at revenue without going fine-tooth nailed. It's looking at our previous recap, plugging those numbers in. We utilize the governor's numbers as sources of revenue. We haven't done a budget review process, so these are general numbers we're doing. But in the packet, you see our cherry sheet, prelim cherry sheet information based on the governor's budget. Quick highlights there, approximately $100,000 of new revenue for the town in comparison to last year's revenue, which obviously is not sufficient, is not enough, about 2.5% increase. For the Bridgewater Rainham School District, I know people know when they look at Chapter 70 funding, you'll note a $400,000 increase in there. But one of the things and why I included this is what often people don't look at is the assessments that go along with it as well. So if you look at there's increased assessments in comparison to last year. So essentially, it's actually in this preliminary budget, it's a net loss of revenue in comparison to last year of almost $100,000 for the Bridgewater Rainham School District. New growth, you'll see that when we dive into this a little bit further, we're using a conservative number of $200,000. We'll have a new growth number once we do the review with our chief assessor. But that's lower than the new growth amount of fiscal year 26, which was 521. And that number has, if you all probably remember, this number has been trending lower and lower. And obviously, as we have less projects going on, water and wastewater infrastructure issues, new growth is going to be a lot lower. One of the other sort of high-level things that we've had from our health insurance collaborative is we're looking at generally health insurance increases are projected around 15 to 25%. Once again, very early numbers, but that's something that we wanted to highlight. Education, I think we have since 2021, we've used a revenue sharing formula. And essentially, the revenue share, it takes a look at property tax, a 2.5% increase, new growth. It looks at some local receipts as well as some state funding. And essentially, it's almost a 50-50 split. It's about 51-49. Based on that sort of split, it would only be about $852,000 going to the school because net new revenue for us is $1.7 million. I think for context, to just show you that we have a revenue issue within town, is I know a lot of the council was at the presentation, the preliminary budget presentation that the Bridgewater Rainham School Superintendent gave. If you look at their presentation, they were assuming they were going to get an increase of about 3% of Chapter 70, which they aren't. But their number had a net increase for the town of about preliminary $3.1 million, where on a revenue share, we're at $800-something thousand. It just shows the gap that we're at. And in fact, that's more revenue that we're getting based on the revenue, a 2.5% increase and new growth. So I think it's important to bring that context in there. I don't want to keep going too much. I want to let Lori chime in and then obviously let you ask some questions, but it is a preliminary sort of budget forecast. We're obviously going to dive into that. We had our kickoff meeting with our department heads, and Lori, you want to add anything further and then open for some questions?
Thank you, Justin and members of the council. So yeah, we're here with this preliminary forecast, which, as you can see in front of you, is not pretty positive. So the revenues that we are looking at as an increase is 2.5% in the property taxes. The governor's first House 1 budget came out, or House 2 it's called. It's 2.2% basically. In this particular forecast, where it left our local receipts flat, meaning we're just leaving it alone because we're going to analyze it a little further and make sure that we're tracking enough to positively forecast an increase in that. And then the other receipts are other funding sources, which, as you can see, or maybe not looking at you don't have last year's in front of you, we added that $450,000 from the stabilization fund to help with the school post supplemental override. So that is not included in here. So overall, you're looking at an increase of revenue that we're starting off with for this February 1st date of 1.5%. We did a high-level increase in our expenditures, and as Justin mentioned, and in the letter that you have before you, insurance, we're looking at about 14.2% in health insurance. Our pension is about 7%. We did a pretty reasonable and modest increase in the overall expenses, but with those large cost drivers, we're looking at a 4.4% increase in expenses. So that's including us looking at the revenue share that we kind of model for increase in the school's appropriation or assessment, which was 2.584, I think, is what came out as far as our annual forecast for that. So that gives the school in this particular forecast an increase of, what was it, Justin, about, sorry.
What were you saying, Lori? Sorry.
The school, 2.584.
2.584.
It's about $800 and something thousand. So it's not probably what the school is looking at based on their pretty dismal numbers from the state aid. So, yeah, this is just building off of the $849,000 additional which was about a 7% increase in the school assessment last year. So we will expect to see also an increase in the vocational tech schools, because as we've been noticing, the enrollment for the district has been going down, but they're going to the vocational schools, so those assessments will grow. And then the school choice, if the students leave the district and go to a private Catholic or whatever school, we're paying that out for school choice. So, it's not a rosy picture, I know, but it's just the beginning, and we're We're going to do some diligent work in the month of February, meeting with our department heads, see what their goals are and what we can, do to maintain operations and demands of the community. So, yeah, this is just the beginning stage of this process, so. We were going to do a presentation tonight, but we just figured we'd come in and give you what we have now. But we expect to be meeting with the subcommittees a lot, and even at the next council meeting, we can, dig into the forecasting and our methodology a little bit more. But, we wanted to, just give you some information now. We're going to keep throwing information at you, and we're here to answer any questions all along the way, so.
And I think one thing, and then I know probably there's some questions, this is typical of an early budget preliminary forecast. And for context, last year when this was submitted, there was a $1.3 million deficit. When you do a budget forecast, this is generally typical. It's not every community is that case, but it is generally typical to have a budget deficit based on Prop 2, and we have to have a balanced budget. So we will do that work. So once again, this is high level, just using general assumptions, not doing nitty gritty work associated with it. But like Lori said, we wanted to give you that information and try to keep this simple, break this down, tell you what we have here, and then obviously as we get through this budget process, there'll be a lot more information, a lot more presentations and so forth. So I also want to thank Lori and her team because they do a lot of the work associated with the charts that you have there, and they do a lot of the prep work to do this budget work. So I do want to acknowledge that and thank them for the work that they've done so far.
On that point, I just want to also thank you for the work that you've done so far. I did want to suggest to our council president, I know we have a budget and finance committee and a finance committee that'll look at all of this stuff. I would like to suggest that we have 1 or 2 additional meetings on top of our regular council meetings on an off week to just deal with the budget specifically, not other business. We have all sorts of business to do, and I think we should do that. Hopefully, my recommendation will happen. I talked to the superintendent today in anticipation of us being invited to their meeting tomorrow night just to see if there were any additional figures. And one of the things he told me is just what you said, Laurie, about the vocational technical schools increase in school choice. He told me it's about $426,000 that they weren't anticipating. So we have a lot of people that have left the district. He's reported that out to us. We've been to 2 meetings already. Well, I went to the parent-guardian meeting just to get a little info, and then we all had that joint meeting last week. And then tomorrow night, I'm sure we'll hear more. But there's a lot of work to do. The state is a disappointment, to say the least, and a lot of work has to happen going forward. So thanks for what we have so far.
Thank you. Comments and questions? Sure.
Do you know the amount of the enrollment that has left? Because I could only find 23, 24. There was 270 kids that have left.
I'm sure, I don't have that, but I think it'll, maybe tomorrow we'll have some more information.
So wouldn't that even out, say 200 kids left because they're going to other schools? So that means we need less teachers or less money for the high school because these kids are no longer there. So can it kind of even out?
Mary, well, our team is not going to address that. That's something that we would talk with the school committee and the superintendent about. I don't want to speak for them.
No, I meant in our budget, the budget-wise.
Well, if the budget,
Yeah.
if they leave the district, the regional district, and they're going to the vocational, it's not leaving our budget. It's actually still in the town's budget.
Tuition?
The education, it's just moving in the line to BP or BA.
So we still have to pay tuition to those schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't we get reimbursement for some of those tuitions?
No,
We don't get for any of them?
no.
Oh.
We're not, the vocational schools are covered by a different chapter 74, and we do get a little bit of, you'll see on our cherry sheets, there's a little chapter 70, which is for the vocational, but it's not anything near because we're not education, so it goes all to the schools pretty much.
All right, the other thing is, did you get the base number that DESE's requiring us to pay for the school?
Yes, I think that was part of the presentation that Superintendent Power.
I was sick, so I didn't make it, and I haven't gotten any copies. If you have copies of that?
He's presenting that tomorrow night, and so there can be copies regarding that.
Yeah. but
Okay.
It should be available tomorrow. I think
Yeah.
the meeting, the last time, it was just like a prelim to the prelim.
Yeah.
But tomorrow night, I
Yeah.
think they'll have some solid numbers.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, can I also think we should get information, I'm going to keep saying this at every meeting, ahead of time. Tomorrow, and I hate having stuff dumped on my desk by anybody the night of the meeting or the day of the meeting. If we're getting stuff tomorrow night, I think we should have already had it. It's already done. Not you. You guys give us great information, but I truly think in order to do our jobs properly, we should have that information ahead of time.
Other questions, councilors?
I do want to say this because I think we've had, since I've been here, we've had really good collaboration and really good dialogue with our school partners. For example, I was invited to the budget subcommittee, and next week I'm going to go present this information. The budget. We're doing things a little bit differently. I know in terms of the presentation they're giving tomorrow, I think there was a prelude to that already at the meeting that the council attended before. There is a commitment from Superintendent Powers and us to share his information as collaboratively and as transparently as possible, especially in this budget climate. So, Councilor Lindy, we hear you, and I think Superintendent Powers hears you, and we're going to try to give people the information that they need timely, and we've done that so far as best as possible.
Just so that we could all get a clear picture of what we're going to be dealing with. Based upon what the superintendent proposed preliminarily, there was about a 4.8% increase, so about $5 million increase. There's zero increase in Chapter 70 funding to the schools, which is abysmal. So Bridgewater's looking at absorbing, what, about $3 million of that?
I think
It could be more than that, and so I don't want to put a conjecture on that because one of the things that the preliminary budget that Superintendent Powers did, I think it had an assumption that Chapter 70 was going to increase by 3%. That didn't happen. So that delta naturally is going to be larger. I don't have that information before me just yet, so I don't want to give you a hypothesis, but it is going to be larger than that because of that. Because of that assumption they use in the prelim budget. That's why generally, as you all will be aware, and I think it's important for the community to know, generally we won't provide budgetary information until we have that governor's number, because that gives you sort of a baseline understanding of what we're looking at the prelim level, because obviously as you go through the legislative process, legislature, those numbers are not hard and set in fact. House Ways and Means has a budget, Senate Ways and Means has a budget, then you got to do conference committee. Generally, we've seen that revenue increase as part of the legislative process, but at the same time, you do see assessments increase as well. So we use the governor's number as the baseline, and because Superintendent Powers did his preliminary budget before House 2 came out, it was using an assumption that isn't the case, and so they have to adjust their numbers as well.
And then we're starting off with a $2 million deficit, so we're like $4 million from where they want to be at.
It's going to be a
Yeah, I don't want to paint doom and gloom, but I just want to be realistic. We have got a lot of work to do, and we need to be able to be willing to dig in and look at solutions and ways of, coming up with that gap. But I just want us to, the 9 of us to understand, or 8, sorry, understand what we're dealing with here, so.
And we'll be, giving you any information that you need. We're hoping to do, we'll be giving out information at obviously the subcommittee meetings and the finance committee meetings, but, we'll use the website, whatever we know and we have, we're going to push out. So we're developing some kind of, we'll be developing something so that we can get the public aware and, just here to help with any questions anyone has, so.
Great. Well, if our state leaders are listening, we can't do this on zero increase. We can't do this on 2.5% increase in unrestricted government aid. It's not sustainable. So if anybody's listening, hopefully they could do something about that.
I can tell you, I saw Dennis on Saturday, and he was very disappointed as well. So he's making the calls, and I'm sure he's doing what he can, but I'm sure he'll probably come in and speak to that as well. So.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it, right? Did you have anything else?
In terms of that, no.
Do we have any questions or requests of counselors for future council meetings? None? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just wanted to follow up because we have citizens here. There is an ordinance that President Loretti and myself had put forward. It's being reviewed. It does relate to a lot of water concerns. So I just wanted to let people know, and I look forward to working with both the town manager and the town attorney to sort out some of those in a way that does not violate Mass General Law, because there are quite a few regulations on a lot of things, zoning, lots of building. The way you word these things is not particularly easy. So I just want the public to know as well. I know this is but I look forward to working with you to try to advance that in a way that works for the town.
likewise. All right, so we'll now move in. We do not have any discussions. Do we have any committee reports? Okay, seeing none. We'll now move into legislation for action. We have Resolution FY 26-007, an assessment of the reuse of the former town hall, AKA townhouse. We did keep this at the council level, and then we continued it because Councilor Ellenberg wasn't able to join us last time, so we do have that up for our consideration tonight. I know that there was a lot of discussion regarding the language in here. I don't know where that currently stands, if you reviewed it with Council Rollins.
If I may give an update, I have been discussing this with CPC officials, and some of the language that they recommend, for example, Community Preservation Committee is cited in the second paragraph, but it was in fact a defunct Town Hall Reuse Committee. So I have a few things to change. I would ask that this be continued for another meeting.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote on that, or we just leave it on the agenda?
Take a vote to
To get a vote to continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to a date certain, whatever date you.
At our next council meeting.
Or, yeah.
Okay, do you want to make that motion?
I so move.
And do we have a second? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We do not have any old business. We do have some new business. Order FY 26-048, appointment to a vacant District 1 councillor seat. I introduced this essentially because it was precedent previously when there were vacancies for the council to essentially vote on an order to appoint that, that vacancy. So I introduced this. The seat became vacant as of January 20th, and the intent of this order would be to fill the seat until that term expires on April 25th. So we can't take any action on this tonight. We are just introducing it. I think that the council should entertain and listen to the folks who have applied, some of which who have already pulled papers for that seat, and this gives us an opportunity to meet some of them, and then the council can decide at our next meeting if we would like to appoint somebody just for, I think it's going to be like maybe four meetings or so. So that's for our consideration at our next meeting. So I would look for a motion just to keep this at a town council level.
Moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So our next February meeting, the 14th, will be interviewing?
The plan right now is on the 17th, yeah. 2 weeks from today, we would be interviewing candidates, and we would first vote if we want to fill, we would take this up to vote to fill the seat, and then we would take interviews and then potentially appoint somebody.
So they'll be on the council just for 3 weeks?
Well,
2 in March
if
and
they
1 in
are
April?
sworn in that night, I don't know if they would be. No, they wouldn't be sworn in that. It would be the next morning. So they would just serve for the meetings in March and April. So it'd be
So
4
there'll be
meetings.
2 in March and 1 in April. So why?
It'd be 2 each, should be 4
After the second meeting.
Okay, so there'll be 4.
meetings. Mhm.
So why are we rushing when it's only 4 rather than waiting to April?
I'm personally following the process, and I think that due to all of the budget issues that we just heard of, I like having the idea of a full council. Due to some of the actions that we may have to take, it
Such
would
as
be
what?
help. Well, it's hard to say, right? Because we
But I
don't
mean,
know what we're
when
going
do
to
we
face
pass
with the
our
budget.
budget? I mean, we don't pass it before April.
No, but there's a lot of work that's done between now and then.
All right. Thank you.
I would suggest that we interview the candidates tonight and take a vote next week.
Well, they're not here.
They're not here?
Well, more.
Oh,
No, it wouldn't be proper.
That's also
yeah.
not on your agenda, so that
Yeah.
would be an
It's not
open
on the
meeting law
agenda.
violation.
And they have one more week to apply also.
okay.
Yeah.
I have a concern about appointing somebody early on when we have an election coming up. I think it disrupts the election. There's somebody who's already been appointed and sitting here. I think it makes it easy for people to say then, oh, I don't need to pay any attention to what's going on. I'll just vote for the person who's already there. I think it gives that person a leg up on the election. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't want to do that. So just saying that.
Speaking of somebody who was appointed, I did appreciate the runway to learn leading into the budget process. So speaking from my experience, that was very helpful for me. So I would like to potentially offer that opportunity. I know that I had a lot more time. I started in January, and this is going to be, February going into March. So it's a little bit different. But I could see it from both sides. So, Councilor Murphy, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I was going to just agree with some of the counselors and say, for myself, I don't think this is something I would vote on either, just for the short period of time. I also, even when you ran, if you remember correctly, I voted against it then because I truly believe that even though the charter outlines this process, I don't believe we should be the ones deciding on a counselor. I think this is sort of the one opportunity where the people decide who sits there and represents them. And so, regardless of the avenue that already exists, I still would consistently vote no and have consistently voted no on this because I believe, the people in District 1 should be the ones to decide who represents them and speaks for them. So I likely would be voting against this too, and it sounds like at least 3 of us are, so I don't want to waste anybody's time going forward, applying and going through the process if it's not going to pass. I don't know if there's opportunity to table this or whatever we need to do, but certainly I don't want to make the motion yet because I would rather everybody kind of speak to it first too.
So I have mixed feelings about it. I served in an appointment. It was supposed to be a 4-month appointment, but it happened during COVID, so it was extended 2 more months. That gave me plenty of time to get up to speed. I didn't win that election, and I left for a while, and I came back. I think Councilor Striggles did us a favor. She resigned early enough so it can be put on the ballot so District 1 residents can make their choice. I think it's really too short a period of time. Unless we had someone that, had prior experience, but that person doesn't vote on the budget. That person might not be elected. It's just such a short period of time. We do all that work. The only thing I worry about, obviously, is a tie with 4-4. I don't think that would happen. I think with all the budget work that happens, I really don't. I think with all the budget work that happens that the town manager puts forth and Laurie Guarini, I think we can figure out how to, pass a budget and not have what happened previously, just a budget got passed because we didn't act on it. That's not good. I got calls from constituents that was kind of split. I got a call actually from a District 1 that was absolutely adamantly opposed to us doing that, and talked to her for half an hour. I reminded her, and people forget this, people have 7 representatives. They have 6 counselors at large. All the counselors at large are a counselor for them, not just their district person. So I really have, I've kind of changed my mind on it. I've been consistently that the district councilor should be appointed no matter what, but for 4 meetings, I'm not sure that's the greatest idea.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would echo similar sentiments because of the time frame. Also, additionally, when we went through this before, when you were appointed, it was a longer time frame than we did have. We went through a process that was basically based on Robert's rules. We have since come up with legislation to help deal with this process going forward, but that process has not been finalized yet. So we'd be going through a similar process that we did go through with you, which again, there was some controversy and people weren't totally in agreement with the process that we went through at the time. So that being said, and with the shortness of the time frame, I'd be hesitant to go forward and appoint someone at this time. If we had more time, it would be a different story. But the election's right across the aisle here in a couple of months, so I think it would be better suited to see candidates who want that seat to put their name up for election, let the people decide, and go with it at that point in time. But that's where I stand.
I'll throw in mine. I do agree with a lot of points that are being made. So I'll just, instead of rehashing those, I'll offer a different one. As a district rep, I do think it's important. We only have 3 districts in town. So just to consider that that's one district that doesn't have direct representation from one individual going forward for the next couple of months. So it is a couple of months. There are obviously at-larges. If it was an at-large seat, that would be a loss to the entire town itself. This is a specific loss to District 1 representation. So I just wanted to throw that in there. There's some great points being made.
Anything else, councilors? So the motion on the table is to keep it at the council level. Do we need to do a voice vote on that? Or is anybody going to make another motion?
Does that mean we will do what you said and act on it at the next meeting?
Yeah, well, we can't act on it tonight.
I know we can't.
Yeah.
Would we be interviewing candidates at the next meeting?
Yeah?
But only if it was allowed, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to vote the motion first, and then you'd have to have a kind of a conditional agenda if that's how you want to do
Well, we would
it.
have to take this out of order, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure, you don't want to interview people when you don't even know you're going to do this, right? So the best approach, it's not the quickest, is really to vote it at the next meeting and then hold the interviews at the subsequent meeting. But if that's not what you want to do, I'm sure there's a way we can do it wherein you vote it at the next meeting. If it's allowed and approved, you have something conditional on the agenda that essentially says, if approved, these are the candidates. So at least everything is notated in your notice and you followed the open meeting law. There's a variety of ways you can do this, and it's really up to you guys how you do it. But if you're going to do it that way, I want to just make sure that you certainly put it on the agenda. Because if there's any chance you're going to interview people, you need to have it on the agenda. You need to make sure that the public is aware that that's going to happen and has the names of the people that are going to be interviewed.
Dr. Parent.
Yeah, this is basically the situation that we went through when you were brought on. We basically put it on the agenda. We had a vote first. It wasn't a definitive known if it was going to happen or not. But we had to put all the pieces in place if it was voted through. So I would agree with the town council. That's the way it happened last time we did this.
So point of clarification through you to the town attorney. So if we leave it on the agenda at the council level, there'll be first a vote to decide whether we're going to appoint somebody, and then have conditionally on the agenda
Those names.
a vote.
Yep.
That's basically the way we'd have to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Or-
what you would probably do is take the legislation for action out of order, right? You'd make a motion to suspend the rules and take the legislation for action out of order. You'd vote all your legislation for action, and then you'd have a section on the agenda thereafter for appointments. And the appointments would list people in the same fashion that you typically do. If you don't do that, I don't know that there's anything inherently wrong with it, but you're interviewing people for something that you don't know that you're going to put them in. I think it's just a bad look, to be honest, more than anything
One
else.
further point, can we take action on it tonight in terms of
Whether we're
Whether
going to
we're gonna
appoint
do
Whether
or
we're
not?
going to do it or
Whether
not.
we're going to do
So
it.
first
That was
reading.
going to be my
First
question.
reading.
That's
It's,
my-
no, I mean, there's a variety of things each of you can do as counselors, but right now, what's in front of me is that it's a first reading of this.
Okay.
We could vote
I was just going to ask if we, then it sounds like there's a motion on the floor to keep it at council level. If we vote no to that, and then I make a motion to table it, could that essentially just make it go away?
Would your intent be to bring it back at some point, or would your intent be to just completely get rid of it?
I don't know.
Okay, so a table could be appropriate in that context.
But-
If you don't know, if you do know, then it would be probably a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to bring things back off the table, though Robert's rules basically implies that at some point you may. You don't have to give a definitive answer on that, and oftentimes things don't come back from the table. But the more appropriate thing is if your intent is to postpone indefinitely, you certainly could make a motion to postpone indefinitely tonight.
Okay, well, just going off your point of, if
Yep.
we're going to ask folks to interview, we should probably decide whether we're going to do it or not. But we've already asked folks to apply to it, and we haven't even decided if we're going to do it or not. So maybe we stop that process tonight so folks don't keep applying and solve the issue then. I can't. There's already a motion on the table.
There's a motion on the
Motion to
table.
retain at council.
Any further discussion on
I have
this
one thing.
motion?
Yeah, I do. We have the motion on the table. I don't want to table it, not that I'm not sure if I want to go forward, but I think at least we give each individual council to vote whether we should do it or not. You know what I mean? We should have voted, we should have had this on the last meeting and be voting on it now. Because we're doing the same thing we did to the last ones. We're having them come without them even knowing we're going to interview them, which I think is ridiculous. But at this point, I think we should just move forward, and that way each council can have their voice heard.
That was the
rather than
thing. We'll
tabling it.
postpone indefinitely, I think is the answer to that.
You're going to
And folks
postpone
can
it?
vote yes or no to move it forward.
Okay.
So who makes it?
You'll have to remind me of the Roberts rules and hierarchy at this time.
So you're on the main motion right
yeah.
now? The motion to postpone indefinitely charts just higher than that main motion, so
Yes,
you
so
would,
that
if
would-
there's a motion to postpone indefinitely and a second, that would get voted before the main motion.
So before we vote on this motion, is anybody else making another motion?
I'll make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
I'll second. Yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, a motion to postpone indefinitely would take this off of the agenda moving forward. And then now we're going to have a discussion about this being a charter violation, because yours and my favorite conversation is that it says that the town council shall appoint somebody and it has to follow a certain process. And now we're deviating from that process. So how do we handle that?
Well, first of all, I'm your town attorney, so I'm not going back and forth with you
Yeah, I
in a
know.
legal argument. I don't think that's beneficial to the town at all.
No.
Secondly, I've made my position on this incredibly clear. I have never wavered from it. I would happily argue it, and if I have to, I will. And I will tell you, there is precedent that's been set on this board that has followed that. And even prior to me being the town attorney, that was the precedent. So you can't prevent lawsuits. It's the nature of what my job is. So if it happens, it happens. It's up to you guys to decide how you proceed.
Just a point I wanted to make.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. You're talking about the precedent. Explain the precedent to us, please.
So historically, the way that it's worked is the council has taken the vote that is here before you today. They, in history, have usually voted first to determine if they're going to fill the seat, right? And that all hinges on where a word shall fits
Yes.
into the charter.
Yes, and
So-
shall is a mandatory term, yes.
It is, but it's mandatory in the sense that, are you deciding, and again, I've had this exercise with you, I believe, already, but I'll gladly talk to you about it again. So basically, the word shall in the charter in this context, in my opinion, and historically, the way that it's been interpreted is that the town council is or shall be the one that has the authority to decide if they're going to appoint someone, not that they shall appoint someone. So it is very nuanced, it is very semantic, it could be interpreted a variety of ways, as can almost 90% of our charter. So the way that the council has always interpreted it is they're the governing body, they're the body that was put there by the citizens to make decisions for the citizens. And so what they, I think, determined historically was, well, we've been asked to do this under the charter and decide if we want to fill this seat because it doesn't fit the other criteria up above where it says, when this happens, you definitely have to do this. When this happens, you definitely have to do this. That's all laid out in the charter. The last part, which is the part you're dealing with, sits in this kind of ambiguous area of both time frame and type of counselor. And it doesn't have a definitive, you do this or you do this. It just says, shall be filled by the town council. Okay, that could mean you have the authority to fill it, which is how I interpret it, or it can mean you have to fill it. The problem with the analysis that you have to fill it, what if you don't get a candidate? Are you in violation of the charter as the town council for not filling it? Query, right? How can you fill something if you don't have a candidate to fill it?
That's not our problem now.
Exactly. And so, but it is the problem if you're interpreting your charter. So when you ask why it worked the way it did historically, that's why. Because the most logical explanation for that line is the way that I think I view it and the way that historically my predecessor and other councils have viewed it. So it's a semantics thing. It absolutely can be interpreted
So it can be interpreted either way. You're admitting that. It can be interpreted either way.
I don't interpret it either way, but I could see a position where you could interpret it a different way.
Okay,
But that's my job, to see different positions, so,
that's right.
yeah.
Any further discussion? So we do have the motion.
Just to
postpone
clarify,
indefinitely. Yeah, go ahead.
if there's only 8 of us, there's no tiebreaker on anything, correct?
Right, so,
According to the issue I thought we were going to run into.
yeah. Right.
Case in point.
So then the motion fails. Yeah.
Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Can I just clarify what we're doing now?
So this would be a motion to postpone indefinitely. This would stop the process of appointment.
Okay, thank you.
A yes would stop the process.
Mr. Kennedy?
No.
Ms. Ellenberg?
No.
Ms. McGrath?
No.
Mr. Loretti?
No.
Dr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
There's 4 to 4.
If only we had a ninth counselor.
Proof enough.
Okay, so back to keeping at a council level.
So move.
Did you have a second? I didn't.
We had a second, we were at discussion, so we're back to that motion. Any further discussion?
What if this fails?
Well, if
Stays on the agenda, doesn't it?
it just stays, I mean, it would just stay on your agenda until the second reading, and then you'd take a vote on it. So ultimately, it stays at council level, right? Because you either vote to refer out, or you vote to keep it at council level. The reason you typically vote to keep it at council level is to make clear on the record that we're not moving it to a committee, right? So either way, it's coming on the next agenda. So this is the first reading, either way.
Let's do a roll call.
Would you
Mr.
would you
Lindy?
read?
Oh, sorry.
Would you just repeat it, what exactly we're voting
It's a
on?
moot point. It's gonna be on our
Voting to
agenda.
keep it on a council level.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Let's just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's easier. Okay,
But what will be on the agenda first will be whether we vote.
yeah, we'll have to take it out of order.
Okay.
Order FY 26-049, acceptance of donation, High Pond Residents Association. I'll ask our town manager to introduce this one for us, please.
We just appreciate a donation from High Pond. I think it's $25, sorry. Yes, $25 and is going to the Bridgewater Veterans Department. I think it's also in memoriam of Mr. Fryer, or Freyer. Hopefully I pronounced that correct, but it's towards the Bridgewater Veterans Office, so we appreciate that donation.
Thank you. So I'm just, I would entertain a vote to refer to the Budget and Finance and the Finance Committee.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
For clarification? I appreciate a $25 donation or any donation, but is there, I know the charter says we have to accept donations, but is there any kind of precedent in any town that a small donation doesn't have to go through the process?
I have no idea. I don't know all the town's ordinances.
Well, no, I'm just wondering if we can
I mean,
set a number.
I'm sure you could make a charter change to a.
It's a charter change,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I would just say it didn't take much time. It was nice of people to give it. So what's the deal? Just say yes and thank you.
Yeah, it brings some public recognition too, so.
Yes.
Okay, we'll now move on to citizen comments. Due to Massachusetts open meeting law requirements, discussions will not take place during public comment periods. If appropriate responses to questions and concerns will be given by the town manager at a future town council meeting. Anyone may come up at this time and speak for up to 3 minutes. Name and address for the record, please.
I'll do my best.
Good evening. My name's Scott Pitta, Pine Street. You guys know me. I want to, one, say that I think it is important to fill that seat. I know you say it's only 3 meetings, 4 meetings. I think we confirmed tonight it's 4 meetings. But you just had your budget presentation. And as you all know, the hard work of the budget starts now. Starts digging through those numbers, and it's important. I've thought that from the moment that seat became empty, and I want to say right now, I certainly agree with the concerns. You don't want to put someone in and give them a leg up on the election. I was the original District 1 rep. I've been elected to that position twice. I'm still a resident of District 1, and I'm going to apply for that appointment. And I will tell you now, I will not pull papers for the election. So I hope that puts your minds at ease, and I hope that I'll have your support for the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Norris. I live at 1297 Furnace Street, right behind that guy. I'm going to echo a little bit of what he said. It is very important that we have 9 counselors. As we just saw tonight, there was a 4-4 vote that one counselor could have made all the difference in the world, and that one counselor would have represented all the thousands of people that live in the 1st District. I would also endorse Scott because I've known him for, 20 years since we both sat on this town council a decade and a half ago, and he's an outstanding individual that represents veterans all across the state. I'm also running for state representative for Bridgewater and Raynham. So I'm going to bring up real quickly a couple ideas that I have for the town council to enact that would benefit our people immediately and in the long term. I have in my hand a list of different grant opportunities that are possible for Bridgewater, totaling between $37 million on the short side, $250 million on the top side. We all know how this works. The grants you apply for, you don't get half. Out of the half you do get, you don't get funded. But even if we get 10% of that, you get between $3.7 and $25 million for our people. And it would just take one small thing. I'm asking the town council to create an ad hoc committee for grant writing to help out our town manager in being able to identify, prepare, and then submit grants on behalf of our people. He's done a phenomenal job. I have no critiques of his job in this, but I do think that he's one person in an organization, and giving some help would be much appreciated. I would hope that in the long term, that ad hoc committee becomes a permanent one. Second thing, real quick, we heard about Azu talking about why the water has kind of changed over time. We used to have a committee called the Water Commission or the Water Committee. I can't remember. It's been a couple decades. Back at that
Water and sewer.
Thank you. I can always count on you, Ms. Hunt. Oh, sorry, Counselor Hunt. Back in those days, we had people who were professionals in Bridgewater who constituted this committee that would give their professional opinion. Mr. Town Manager, I would highly recommend you reconstitute this group. I believe it still exists, but it's just not staffed. I would highly recommend you find professionals in Bridgewater who would be more than happy to help you with long-term planning for water and sewage. Lean on the experience and expertise of the people in Bridgewater. You won't be disappointed. Lastly, we can learn from our past mistakes. Right now, we have the development on Broad Street. It is my understanding that the water test study that they actually used in order to put that forward is over 5.5, 6 years old. It did not take into account our current water system, our current water emergency. So I would recommend that this council take proactive measures, especially since, as President Loretti had pointed out, we're going through this process of reviewing all of our bylaws. Let's take this opportunity to make sure this never happens again. And then make sure that people can't change those rules without approval of the council. So that's my comments. If anyone would like to talk to me afterwards about any of these that I've found, I'm more than happy to explain them to you, walk you through them, and help you guys build that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up and speak? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to councillor comments. I'll start with councillor. Actually, no. Are we going to go to? Yeah, we'll do councillor comments, and then we have the executive session at the end. So I'll start with councillor Lindy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to prolong the meeting too much because we have executive session. I think we always have good discussions here. I appreciate all the residents that came out to listen to what we have to say, and I want to take their, I remember that we work for them. So getting feedback from constituents on the District 1 seat, it's not my district. I live in a different district. It's a third of the town. I got calls from District 1 residents. I said, I'm not your counselor. There are 6 more. So talk to them as well. Come to the meeting. Speak up at the meeting. Let us know what you want. We have a lot of work to do. The budget is, bleak at best right now. We all have we're all invited tomorrow night to go to the school committee and listen to the presentation there. I think it's going to be a little bit more definitive numbers than the ones we had before. I think Budget and Finance is doing a great job, but I think we should all, like I said before, I would like to see us meet more so we can sort this out and do it. I've heard people talk about the big dreaded override word, but right now it's not looking good. We might have to consider that again. I'm not looking personally to raise taxes, but I also went on a tour of the schools and saw the conditions in the schools in Bridgewater. Some of us were able to go. I'd like to see Raynham too, but we have our police, we have our fire, we have our smallest budgets like veterans and senior center and the library, and we have a lot of choices to make. The water situation is complex. I will say that I appreciate the town manager and the DPW commissioner for being here and maybe not giving us answers we want to hear about timetable, but at least being honest about it and saying, I want to get you all the facts before I say anything. So I appreciate that, and onward and upward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
I don't have anything big to say, but I think this was a very productive and very good meeting. And I guess I should say I really appreciate all the counselors on here and all the people who come, although a lot of them have gone, to hear and to listen and to talk. And I was really glad to hear one of our boards, committees, and commissions giving a report tonight, because we've really missed that. That's supposed to be something that they should do every year and come in and tell us what's happening out there in the area where we aren't. So even though it was my husband, I thank him for doing that, and I thank you guys for being great counselors.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Nothing just additional, just as thankful as Councillor Hunt.
Dr. Perry.
Thank you. Start off with just apologies not making it to our meeting last month on the 20th. It was my birthday, and I don't think my family wanted to have dinner with me at 10 o'clock at night. So I celebrated the birthday with the family. But I do want to acknowledge also going to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new fire station. It is a wonderful building and well-deserved for our firefighters here. Hopefully, like I say, this building lasts them the next 100 years. But they've got everything in the world that they need to operate, to train, to be comfortable, to be healthy, and like I say, well-deserved, and I'm glad it is finally in place for those guys. Again, I'm going to save comments on budgets and all that in our process, but you know, the picture already being painted is not a great one. You know, starting off with a potential $2 million shortfall is not an easy gap to close. We had discussions before. There's just not enough money in the pie of the town of Bridgewater to cover everything for schools, for police, for fire, for infrastructure. It's just not there. Obviously, the state's already come out with not giving us any extra money for Chapter 70. Small amount for the town itself, potentially. So where else is the money going to come from? We're not looking at potential override vote for this April, but it certainly might be in discussion for November. But we're going to get the ducks in a row. We're going to prove if it needs to happen that it's going to be evident for everyone that without it, and we're certainly going to have to make some hard decisions, and certain things might have to be cut, like it was 15 years ago. And hopefully we don't have to repeat those processes that we did years ago to realize that we need to generate some extra revenue to run the town. But we're going to do everything we can to make it work, to make it happen as best we can, and in the end, we'll have to see where we need to go. But a lot of work ahead of us. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ellenberg.
Yes, one thing that was brought up last week was the trees on the common. And I had a constituent who called me and who brought a very interesting idea, which was to replace the trees with a landscaper who would know like what types of trees will be immune from viruses and so forth, and to perhaps solicit a donation from businesses to do the trees. So hopefully we will continue to have a beautiful common, and the tree committee will take that up. Second thing is I would like to volunteer for the grant writing committee. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
I'll keep it short because we still have stuff. Thank you for the public for coming out, and as always, I do feel like we got a lot of information out, and I look forward to continuing down that path going forward. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. And Vice President McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Mrs. Hunt. I enjoyed having the committee come, and I would like to see set up a schedule that the committees come all the time. We can rotate them. We don't have that many right now. There's a lot that aren't filled, so I would enjoy that. And as for Allenberg, I can tell you that the downtown revitalization has a landscaper and a tree warden, so we are working on the common.
Excellent.
Thank you. So just to reiterate from earlier, we do have the Charter Review Committee, so if you are interested, please go ahead and apply to that. And that's pretty much all that I have for tonight. We had a great meeting, and I said it earlier, but if anybody from the state is listening to this is not going to cut it. You can't put things in the backs of our taxpayers. Oh, and on that note, I just came back to me. I want to congratulate Councilor McGrath on her podcast. She's had some great guests recently, 2 candidates that are running for governor. So those are some pretty cool guests that you have on there. So good for you. And if you haven't checked out her podcast, it's great. So with that being said, we will now I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and to adjourn from executive session. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And then a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Ellenberg?
Yes.
Ms. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Loretti?
Yes.
Dr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt?
Yes.
And Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0
Do you have
opposed.
a 5-minute recess?
Sure.